Precious Remedies Against Satan's Devices, a book from Thomas Brooks. I would highly recommend you to buy this book. It gives a good insight in how the enemy is doing everything against believers and non-believers to have them leading astray and making absolutely sure that they do not come back to the living God of the universe himself. Today, Satan's devices to destroy and ensnare all sorts and ranks of men in the world. It's quite a long study, so maybe I'm going to do it in two, but I will see what the Father wants. If he wants me to continue, I continue. Okay, let us start. So Satan's devices to destroy and ensnare all sorts and ranks of men in the world. Devices against the great and the honorable of the earth. Device 1. His first device to destroy the great and honorable of the earth is by working them to make it their business to seek themselves, to seek how to greaten themselves, to raise themselves, to enrich themselves, to secure themselves. Well, this is what we obviously see with all those people that actually form the 1%. And how they do everything to convince others to live the same type of life as they do. Which is of course part of this device too. As you may see in Pharaoh, Ahab, Rehoboam, Jeroboam, Absalom, Joab, Haman, and others. But where the scripture is silent, our own experiences do abundantly evidence this way and method of Satan to destroy the great and the honorable, to bury their names in the dust and their souls in hell, by drawing them wholly to mind themselves, and only to mind themselves, and in all things to mind themselves, and in all ways to mind themselves. All, said the apostle, mind themselves. Philippians 2 verse 21. All comparatively in respect of the paucity of others that let fall their private interests and drown all self-respect in the glory of God and the public good. The first remedy against this device of Satan is solemnly to consider that self-seeking is a sin that will put men upon a world of sins. Upon sins not only against the law of the living God, the rules of the gospel, but that are against the very laws of nature, that are so much darkened by the fall of man's. Footnote 1. Self-love is the root of the hatred of others. It puts the Pharisees upon opposing Christ, and Judas upon betraying Christ, and Pilate upon condemning Christ. It puts Gehazi upon lying, and Balaam upon cursing, and Saul and Absalom upon plotting David's ruin. It puts Pharaoh and Haman upon contriving ways to destroy those Jews that the living God did purpose to save by his mighty arm. It puts men upon using wicked balances and the back of deceitful weights. Well, this is exactly what we see today with all the polls and the statistics, the so-called statistics, and everything that is based on computer models. And these models are now seen as the new religion, because that is what it is. Models these days are the new idols, and polls are the new idols, and everything in so-called society, because we're not really living in a very uh, society. It is nothing more than a group of human beings living on earth, their own life, their own selfish life. And we see what is said here expressed until the day of today. And the majority of the human population still do not want to see that they are being deceived on daily basis through statistics, computer models, polls, enquetes, and whatever you have that the rich class is using to gain more money of the rest. I continue. It puts men upon ways of oppression and so-called selling the righteous for silver and the poor for a pair of shoes. Amos chapter 2 verse 6. And I would highly recommend you to read these mentioned scriptures too. I know not any sin in the world, but this sin of self-seeking will put men upon it, though it be their eternal loss. And this is exactly what we see. What we see happening now is that humanity doesn't want to look at the worldly mirror in which they can see their behaviors and their greed and their lusts and the gluttony and their wrath and their hate and their jealousy and their pride that they express in the world. And they do not want to see that all these named things are the result of the devastation that we are now in. Because, be honest, the entire ecosystem is completely out of balance due to human greed, human lusts, human gluttony, human wrath, human pride, human jealousy toward one and another, and actually toward the living God and His creation. And what we now see is a very dramatic thing in the whole history of humankind, is that there is a bunch of humans thinking that they can play for God themselves and that they can reshape the entire creation of the Almighty living God and Creator of the universe itself, which is a very utter dangerous thing. And with this, we see now the total collapse going on. And this total collapse is a collapse that humanity themselves has created from generation unto generation. Because this total collapse is not based on just the generations that are now on earth. No, it's a long time process. And humanity forgets that evil is there as a learning school for us to see that we should not do the things of which we think that we need to do. So the function of evil actually on this earth is to show us, if we think this, if we create this, without the leading hand of the Almighty living God of the universe Himself, then the result will be like this. Sorry for my throat. So humanity doesn't want to see and look in the mirror that the almighty living God and creator of the universe is upholding, and in this mirror he shows us that we are never able to fix all the problems that we have created ourselves by ourselves. And we see this because all the so-called solutions the human race is thinking of leads the human race even further away from the living God than ever before. So I can continue. I know not any sin in the world, but this sin of self-seeking will put men upon it, though it be their eternal loss. And this is the collapse. Loss is also the same as collapse. This is the collapse that we are in. So what is the collapse? The collapse is the total falling apart of every single thing that the human race have built themselves, based on their own greed, on their own gluttony, on their own desires, on their own perverted self-image, based on their own way of thinking, how they have to shape the earth, based on their own vain imaginations and visions, all troubled by unclean spirits and so on. So what we now see is the fall of a world that is completely made by man's hands. That is what we see. Remedy 2. The second remedy against this device of Satan is seriously to consider that self-piquing doth exceedingly abase a man. It strips him of all his royalty and glory. Of a lord it makes a man become a servant to the creature, often to the worst of creatures, yea, a slave to slaves, as you may see in Judas, Demas, Balaam, and the scribes and Pharisees. Footnote 2. A self-seeker is a Cato without, but a Nero within. Domitian would seem to love them best whom he willed least should live, and that is the very temper of self-seekers. Self-seekers bow down to the creatures, as Gideon's many thousands bowed down to the waters. Self-seeking will make a man say anything, do anything, and be anything to please the lusts of others and to get advantages upon others. This is something we need to let sink into our hearts. And this is exactly what is being mirrored. Humanity is man-pleasing, not Christ-pleasing or living God-pleasing, because that's what Christ is, but man-pleasers. They do everything to please their fellow brothers and sisters, and they on their turn do likewise, so it's a vice versa. What happens if a system is built on only this format? Man pleasing man. It collapses. And that is what you see. Look at the industry. Oh, the humans want to have a device or a machine for this and this because they think that if they have that, they get more time to spend. And it helps them to be lesser busy with household activities. What does the other group do? It invents exactly that what the other group, what another certain percentage group amongst the humans are creating as a thought pattern in the human collective that will be picked up by those whom are so greedy and who see a lot of dollar signs in their eyes. They pick that thought form up, and the industry is going along with it, makes it, and what happens? Those who wanted to have this are pleased by it because that what they pleases has been made. This is how it works. Man pleasing man, that doesn't work. And that is the collapse too. That's part of the collapse too. That is what we have to look in the mirror too. To see that the majority of humanity is still pleasing one or another. And does everything to keep their neighbors happy, to keep their family members happy, to keep their partners happy, to keep their children happy. Nothing is based on pleasing Christ and thus pleasing the Almighty living God of the universe Himself. And if we would have done so, we never ever would be in a world as it is nowadays. Self-seeking transforms a man into all shapes and forms. Now it makes a man appear as an so-called angel of light, false light of course, an anon as an angel of darkness. Footnote 1. It was death in Moses' rites to counterfeit that ceremonial and figurative ointment. Exodus 30, verse 33. What shall it then be to counterfeit the spirit of life and holiness? Now, self-seekers are seemingly for God. Anon, they are openly against God. And that is what we see. Everything that we see in the world, that we see as our world, everything is based against the living God of the universe. There's actually hardly anything to find on this earth that pleases the Almighty living God of the universe Himself. Everywhere where you come, you feel the breath of death and rebellion against the Almighty living God of the universe Himself. Now you shall have them crying, Hosanna in the highest, and anon, crucify Him, crucify Him. Now you shall have them built with the saints, and anon you shall have them plotting the overthrow of the saints as those self-seekers did in Ezra and Nehemiah's time. And it's funny that he is using here the word anon. Interesting, there is a movement, isn't it? QAnon. So I knew already that whole group is absolutely not a group that has good intentions in them, and it's a group created to ensnare people more than ever into making them believe false messages. Messages coming from the cold light, fake light. Self-seekers are the basest of all persons. There is no surface too base, so poor, so low, but they will bow to it. They cannot look neither above nor beyond their own lusts and the enjoyment of the creature. Romans 1 verse 25. These are the prime and ultimate objects of their intentments. Remedy 3 against this device of Satan is solemnly to dwell upon those dreadful curses and woes that are from heaven denounced against self-seekers, who woe unto them that join house to house, that lay field to field, till there be no place, that they may be placed alone in the midst of the earth. Isaiah 5 verse 8. So Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 6 and chapter 2 verse 6 and verse 9 to 12. Woe to him that increaseth that which is not his, and to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. Woe to him that coveteth an evil covetousness to his house, that he may set his nest on high, that he may be delivered from the power of evil. Thou hast consulted shame to thy house by cutting off many people, and hast sinned against thy soul. For the stone shall cry out of the wall, and the beam out of the timber shall answer it. Woe to him that buildeth a town with blood, and establisheth a city by iniquity. The materials of the house built up by oppression shall come as joint witnesses. The stones of the wall cry, Lord, we were built up by blood and violence. And the beam shall answer, True, Lord, even so it is. The stones shall cry, Vengeance, Lord, vengeance upon these self-seekers. And the beam shall answer, Woe to him, because he built his house with blood. So Isaiah, Woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees, and that write grievous, and that write grievousness, which they have prescribed to turn aside the needy from judgment, and to take away the right from the poor of my people, that widows may be their prey, and that they may rob the fatherless. Isaiah 10 verse 1 and 2. So Amos, we find this, Woe unto them that are at ease in Zion, or Zion, and trust in the mountain of Samaria, which are that put far away the evil day, and cause the seat of violence to come near, that lie upon beds of ivory, and stretch themselves upon their couches, and eat lamb out of the flock, and the calves out of the middle of the stall, that drink wine in bowls, and anoint themselves with chief ointments, but they are not grieved for the afflictions of Joseph. Amos chapter 6 verse 1, verse 3 and 4, 5 and 6. So Micah or Micha, woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds when the morning is light. They practice it because it is in the power of their hand. And they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage. Micah chapter 2 verse 1 and 2. And this is exactly what is going on, because look at this ridiculous system. If someone dies, then the governmental system comes 24 hours later with a letter on the doormat that you have to pay this amount of taxes over the heritage that the person who died left for you. How clear can you get how greed has rooted so deeply on this earth? Because this is totally greed based. The entire taxation system is only working to increase greed. And I truly believe that in essence, the taxation system could work if it would have been settled in accordance with the laws and statutes of the Almighty living God of the universe Himself. I think there is nothing wrong with setting up a system as taxation, but the money needs to go indeed to those things that the money needs to go. But the entire taxation system has turned into a system of complete greed. Greed to fill the pockets of those with nasty, evil intentions towards their fellow human brothers and sisters. To make sure that they have the money to enroll their evil, dark, sinister, death-based agendas. And this is an example that the Father immediate gives to me at the moment while I'm reading this. Thank you, Abba Father, for giving me this example. And this is exactly what the whole system is based. Why do you think that we are in a closed monetary system and not in an open monetary system? Because the closed system serves the utter greedy ones in this world. It gives them all the opportunities to squeeze out the rest of their fellow human brothers and sisters and leave them in greater poorness than they already are. And now we see it with the enrolling of so-called laws, which are no laws, because the law system, people, is only a system of suppression and a system that is created by the greedy fellow human brothers and sisters who wants to have utter control over the rest. And to make sure that they have the utter control over the rest, they have set up the law system in such a way that it always works in their favor. So the law system is only there to protect the assets of the rich people, those human brothers and sisters who have become so dark because of their greediness, gluttony, lusts, and desires, and they want to keep everything of which they think that is theirs and of which they think have the right to claim as theirs. But as a matter of fact, nothing is ours because we came naked into this world and we leave naked the world. There is no such thing as ours because the Almighty Living God never created us with the idea to have a life on our own. No. The sole purpose of the creation of humanity is to reach two goals. One, to complete and to fulfill the perfect will of the Almighty Living God Himself, who is the creator of all life and good, and the creator of good and bad, and to eventually embody the same characters and characteristics from the Almighty Living God and Creator of the universe Himself, and so that we become like Christ. Christ expressed the living God in the flesh and showed us the characteristics of the Father Himself, showed us how we have to use language in a way that makes life grow instead of decrease. Because words are thought forms. You have a thought form, and through the thought form, how can it be manifested? Also through words. Words give expression to a thought form, and so gives manifestation to a thought form. That is why it is of such an importance to watch your mouth and to watch the words you are using to one and another, because you can kill a person by words. We have no idea how many times of a day we are cursing a person, because we have no clue how many words in our language are curse words. And so we have no idea what we are doing over a whole day to one another and what that results in the spiritual realm. Because if you use certain words against a fellow brother or sister, it has not only consequences in the manifesting form, but also consequences directly in the spiritual realm. Did you know by using certain words that you create things in the spiritual realm that eventually can work against you? And shall work against you. So, maybe you should wonder, if you have problems in your life, you should wonder about the fact, what did I create in the spiritual realm that is now working against me? All right. I continue. By these scriptures you see that self-seekers labor like a woman in travail, but their birth proves their death, their pleasure, their pain, their comforts, their torment, their glory, their shame, their exaltation, their desolation, loss, disgrace, trouble and shame, vexation and confusion will be the certain portion of self-seekers. Wow, let that sink in. This is... I read so many words of wisdom here. This is, again, it is so worth it to buy this book yourself too and read it yourselves. When the Tartarians had taken in battle the Duke of Muscovia, they made a cup of his skull with this inscription: all covet, all lose. Remedy 4 against this device of Satan is solemnly to consider that self-seekers are self-losers and self-destroyers. Absalom and Judas seek themselves and hang themselves. Saul seeks himself and kills himself. Ahab seeks himself and loses himself, his crown and kingdom. Pharaoh seeks himself and overthrows himself and his mighty army in the Red Sea. Cain sought himself and slew two at once, his brother and his own soul. Gehazi sought change of raiment, but God changed his raiment into a leprous skin. Haman sought himself and lost himself. The princes and residents sought themselves in the ruin of Daniel, but ruined themselves, their wives and children. That which self-seekers think should be a staff to support them, because by the hand of justice an iron rod to break them, that which they would have as springs to refresh them becomes a gulf utterly to consume them. The crosses of self-seekers shall always exceed their mercies, their pain, their pleasure, their torments, their comforts. Every self-seeker is a self-tormentor, a self-destroyer. He carries a hell, an executioner in his own bosom. And this is exactly what we see unfolding right now in front of our eyes. The total consuming of everything that self-seekers found that they have the right to claim it. What we see is the total collapse of a world created by self-seekers. Footnote 1. Adam seeks himself and loses himself, paradise and that blessed image that the living God had stamped upon him. Lot seeks himself, Genesis 13 verse 10 and 11, loses himself and his goods. Peter seeks to save himself and miserably loses himself. Hezekiah, in the business of the ambassador, seeks himself and lost himself and his life too. Had not God saved him by a miracle? Remedy 5 against this device of Satan is to dwell much upon the famous examples of those worthy saints that have denied themselves and preferred the public good before their own particular advantage, as Moses, and the Lord saith unto Moses, Let me alone, that I may destroy them, and blot out their name from under heaven, and I will make of thee a nation mightier and greater than they. Deuteronomy 9 verse 14. Oh, but this offer would not take with Moses, he being a man of brave public spirit. He is hot in his desires and prayers that the people might be spared and pardoned. Saith he, pardon, I beseech thee, the iniquity of this people, according unto the greatness of thy mercy, and as thou hast forgiven this people from Egypt until now. And the Lord saith, I have pardoned according to thy word. Book of Numbers, chapter 14, verse 19 and 20. Should God make such an offer to many that right themselves? Moses and right themselves Moses, and then comma, and are called by many Moses. I am afraid they would prefer their own advantage above the public good. They would not care what became of the people, so they and theirs might be made great and glorious in the world. They would not care, so they might have a Babel built for themselves, though it was upon the ashes and ruin of the people. Baser spirits than these are not in hell, no, not in hell. And I am sure there are no such spirits in heaven. Such men's hearts and principles must be changed, or they will be undone forever. Nehemiah was a choice soul, a man of a brave public spirit, a man that spent his time, his strength, and his estate for the good and ease of his people. Moreover, saith he, from the time that I was appointed to be their governor in the land of Judah, from the 20th year even unto the 32nd year of Artaxerxes the king, that is 12 years, I and my brethren have not eaten the bread of the governor. Ye also I continued in the work of this wall, and all my servants were gathered hither unto the work. Moreover, there were at my table 150 of the Jews and rulers, besides those that came unto us from among the heathen that are about us. Now that which was prepared for me daily was 1 ox and 6 choice sheep. Also fowls were prepared for me, and once in the 10 days store of all sorts of wine. Yet for all this required I not the bread of the governor, because the bondage was heavy upon the people. Think upon me, O my God, for good, according to all that I have done for this people. Nehemiah 5 verse 14 to 19. So Daniel was a man of a brave public spirit. Then the presidents and the princes sought to find occasion against Daniel concerning the kingdom, but they could find no occasion nor fault, forasmuch as he was faithful, neither was there any error or fault found in him. Then said these men, we shall not find any occasion against this Daniel, except we find it against him concerning the law of his God. Daniel 6 verse 4 and 5. Christ had a public spirit. He laid out himself and laid down himself for a public good. Oh, never leave looking and meditating upon these precious and sweet examples till your souls are quickened and raised up to act for the public good, more than for your own particular advantage. Many heathens have been excellent at this. Macrobius writes of Augustus Caesar, better said Augustus Caesar, in whose time Christ was born, that he carried such an entire and fatherly affection to the commonwealth, that he called it filiam suam, his own daughter, and therefore refused to be called dominus, the lord or master of his country, and would only be called pater patrae, father of his country, because he governed it not by fear but by love. The Senate and the people of Rome jointly saluting him by the name of pater patrae, father of his country. The people very much lamented his death, using that speech, would he had never been born or never died. So Marcus Regulus, to save his country from ruin, exposed himself to the greatest sufferings that the malice and rage of his enemies could inflict. So Titus and Aristides and many others have been famous for their preferring the public good above their own advantage. My prayer is and shall be that all our rulers may be so spirited by the living God, that they may be willing to be anything, to be nothing, to deny themselves completely, and to trample their sinful selves under feet, in order to the honor of the living God and a public good, that so neither saints nor heathens may be witnesses against them in that day, wherein the hearts and practices of all the rulers in the world shall be open and bare before him that judges the world in righteousness and judgment. Remedy 6 against this device of Satan is seriously to consider that self is a great let to divine things. Therefore the prophets and apostles were usually carried out of themselves when they had the clearest, choicest, highest, and most glorious visions. Self-seeking blinds the soul, that it cannot see a beauty in Christ, nor an excellency in holiness. It distempers the palate, that a man cannot taste sweetness in the word of the living God, nor in the ways of living God, nor in the society of the people of the living God. It shuts the hand against all the soul-enriching offers of the living Christ. It hardens the heart against all the knocks and entreaties of Christ. It makes the soul as an empty vine and as a barren wilderness. Israel is an empty vine. He bringeth forth fruit to himself. Hosea 10 verse 1. There is nothing that speaks a man to be more empty and void of God, Christ and grace, than self-seeking. The Pharisees were great self-seekers and great undervaluers of Christ, his word and spirit. There is not a greater hindrance to all the duties of piety than self-seeking. This is that that keeps many a soul from looking after the living God and the precious things of eternity. They cannot wait on the living God, nor act for the living God, nor abide in those ways wherein they might meet with the living God. By reason of self-seeking is that which puts many a man upon neglecting and slightening the things of his peace. Self-seekers will neither go into heaven themselves nor suffer others to enter that are ready to take the kingdom by violence, as you may see in the scribes and Pharisees. But a gracious spirit is acted quite other ways, as you may see in that sweet scripture, Song of Solomon 7 verse 13. At our gates are all manner of pleasant fruits, new and old, which I have laid up for thee. O beloved, all the church hath and is only for him. Let others bear fruit to themselves and lay up for themselves gracious spirits, will hide for Christ and lay up for Christ. All the divine endeavors and productions of saints fall into God's bosom and empty themselves into his lap, as Christ lays up his merits for them, his graces for them, his comforts for them, his crown for them. So they lay up all their fruits and all their loves, all their graces and all their experiences and all their services only for him who is the soul of their comforts and the crown and top of all their royalty and glory. Device 2 that Satan uses to destroy and ensnare all sorts and ranks of men in the world, and uses to destroy the great and the honorable of the earth, is the second device in this is by engaging them against the people of the Most High, against those that are his jewels, his pleasant portion, the delight of his eye and the joy of his heart. Thus he drew Pharaoh to engage against the children of Israel. And that was his overthrow. Exodus 14. Footnote 1. Self-seekers with Esau prefer a mess of pottage above their birthright, and with the men of Shechem esteem the bramble above the vine, the olive and the fig tree, yea, empty things above a full Christ, and base things above a glorious Christ. The saint's motto is, For thee, Lord, for thee, not unto us, O Lord. So he engaged Haman against the Jews, and so brought him to hang upon that gallows that he had made for Mordecai. Esther chapter 7. So he engaged those princes and presidents against Daniel, which was the utter ruin of them and their relations. Daniel 6. So in Revelation 20 verse 7 to 9, and when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison, and he shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, whose number is at the sand of the sea. And they went up, and they upon the breadth of the earth, and compassed the camp of the saints about, and the beloved city, and fire came down from heaven and consumed them. So remedy 1 against this device of Satan is solemnly to consider that none have engaged against the saints, but have been ruined by the living God of saints. Divine justice hath been too hard for all that have opposed and engaged against the saints, as is evident in Saul, Pharaoh, and Haman. He reproved kings for their sakes, saying, Touch not mine anointed, and do my prophets no harm. Psalm 105, verse 15. When men of Balaam's spirits and principles have been engaged against the saints, how hath the angel of the Lord met them in the way, and jostled their bones against the wall? How hath he broke their backs and necks, and by his drawn sword cut them off in the prime of their days, and in the height of their sins. What a harvest hath hell had in our days! Who have engaged against the Lamb and those that are called, chosen, and faithful? How hath divine justice poured out their blood as water upon the ground? How hath he laid their honor and glory in the dust? Who, in the pride and madness of their hearts, saith, as Pharaoh, We will pursue, we will overtake, we will divide the spoil. Our lusts shall be satisfied upon them. We will draw our sword, our hand shall destroy them. Exodus 15, verse 9. In the things wherein they have spoken and done proudly, justice hath been above them. History abounds in nothing more than in instances of this kind. The second remedy against this device of Satan is to dwell sometime every morning upon the following scriptures, wherein the living God hath engaged himself to stand by his people and for his people, and to make them victorious over the greatest and wisest of their enemies. Associate yourselves, saith the Lord, by the prophet, O ye people, and ye shall be broken in pieces, and give ear, all ye of far countries, gird yourselves, and ye shall be broken in pieces. Take counsel together, and it shall come to naught. Speak the word, and it shall not stand. For the living God is with us. Fear not, thou worm, Jacob, and ye men of Israel. I will help thee, saith the Lord, and thy Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel. Behold, I will make thee a new sharp threshing instrument, having teeth. Thou shalt thresh the mountains, and beat them small, and shalt make the hills as chaff. Thou shalt fend them, and the wind shall carry them away, and the whirlwind shall scatter them. And thou shalt rejoice in the Lord, and shalt glory in the Holy One of Israel. No weapon that is formed against thee shall prosper, and every tongue that shall rise against thee in judgment, thou shalt condemn it. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord, and the righteousness is of me, saith the Lord. Now also many nations are gathered together against thee, that say, Let her be defiled, and let our eye look upon Zion. But they know not the thoughts of the Lord, neither understand they his counsel. For he shall gather them as sheaves into the floor. Arise and thresh, O daughter of Zion. I will make thy horn iron, and I will make thy hoof brass, and thou shalt beat in pieces many people. And I will consecrate their gain unto the Lord, and their substance unto the Lord of the whole earth. Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all the people round about, when they shall be in the siege, both against Judah and against Jerusalem. And in that day will I make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. All that burden themselves with it shall be cut in pieces, though all the people of the earth shall be gathered together against it. The third remedy, and there are fourth against this device. So the third remedy against this device that Satan uses is to consider that you cannot engage against the saints, but you must engage against the living God himself by reason of that near and blessed union that is between the living God and them. You cannot be fighters against the saints, but you will be found in the casting up of the account to be fighters against God himself. And what greater madness than for weakness itself to engage against an almighty strength, the near union that is between the Lord and believers is set forth by that near union that is betwixt a husband and his wife. And here comes several scriptures you can read yourself. Isaiah 8 verse 9 and verse 10, chapter 41 verse 14 and verse 15, and chapter 54 and chapter 54 verse 17, Micah chapter 4 verse 11 to 13, Zechariah 12 verse 2 and 3, Acts 5 verse 39. They two shall be one flesh. This is a great mystery, but I speak concerning Christ and the church. We are members of his body, of his flesh, and of his bones, saith the apostle. Ephesians 5 verse 32. This near union is set forth by that union that is between the head and the members which make up one body, and by that union that is betwixt the graft and the stalk, which are made one by incision. The union between the Lord and a believer is so near that you cannot strike a believer, but the Lord is sensible of it and takes it as done to himself. Yes, of course he takes it as done to himself, because we, human beings, are a gift that the living God and creator of the universe himself has given to himself. So everything someone is doing against you, it is done against the Most High himself. And the same when you are saying, when you are having a low self-esteem, and when you are degenerating yourselves by saying, oh, I'm not good for this, oh, I'm that, and I am too fat or too blah blah, I'm not having the perfect body size and whatever. That is not on you to say that. By saying such things, you are actually making a fight against your Creator, the Almighty living God of the universe himself. And you are actually saying, why did you create me in such a way? Couldn't you make me far more beautiful than I am now? Why is it that you had to create me in this type of form? with this body and whatever. So we have to accept that we have been created in a way that the mighty God himself um, found good. That is why we are created specifically. There's none the same. Everyone is created in a specific way and with specific characters and gifts and abilities for a certain reason, because that type, better said, that person has been ordained for a certain task and tasks to do for the living God. So you can say everything we do against one another is a direct attack on the Most High, the living God of the universe himself. I proceed. But the Lord is sensible of it, and takes it as done to himself. Saul, Saul, why persecutest thou me? Saul thought that by persecuting the Jews he did a great job, and he thought that he was serving God by doing so. But he didn't realize that he was actually executing pieces of the living God himself. He was fighting against the living God, the creator of all life and the universe himself. Acts 9 verse 4. And in all their afflictions he was afflicted. Isaiah 63 verse 9. Souls, whoever engaged against God and prospered, whoever took up the sword against him but perished by it. God can speak you to hell and not you to hell at pleasure. It is your greatest concern to lay down your weapons at his feet and to kiss the Son, lest he be angry and you perish in the midway. Psalms 2 verse 12. The last remedy for this second device that Satan uses is solemnly to consider that you are much engaged to the saints as instruments for the mercies that you do enjoy, and for the preventing and removing of many a judgment that otherwise might have been your ruin before this day, whether it not for the saints' sake. The living God would quickly make the heavens to be a brass, and the earth as iron. The living God would quickly strip thee of thy robes and glory, and set thee upon the dunghill with Job. They are the props that bear the world from falling about thy ears, and that keep the iron rod from breaking of thy bones. Therefore he saith that he would destroy them. Had not Moses, his chosen, stood before him in the breach to turn away his wrath, lest he should destroy them? Psalm 106 verse 23. Had not the saints many a time cast themselves into the breach betwixt God's wrath and you? You had been cut off from the land of the living, and had your portion with those whose names are written in the dust. Many a nation, many a family is surrounded with blessings for the Joseph's sakes that live therein, and are preserved from many calamities and miseries for the Moses, the Daniels, and the Noahs, and the Job's sakes that dwell amongst them. That is a sweet word. Proverbs 10 verse 25. As the whirlwind passeth, so is the wicked no more, but the righteous is an everlasting foundation, or is the foundation of the world. The righteous is the foundation of the world, which but for their sakes would soon shatter and fall to ruin. So the psalmist Psalms 75 verse 3. The earth and all the inhabitants thereof are dissolved. I bear up the pillars of it. Selah. The emperor Marcus Aurelius, being in Almany with his army, was enclosed in a dry country by his enemies, who so stopped all the passages that he and his army were like to perish for want of water. The emperor's lieutenant, seeing him so distressed, told him that he had heard that the Christians could obtain anything of their God by their prayers, whereupon the emperor, having a legion of Christians in his army, desired them to pray to their God for his and the army's delivery out of that danger, which they presently did. And presently a great thunder fell amongst the enemies, and abundance of water upon the Romans, whereby their thirst was quenched, and the enemies overthrown without any fight. I shall close up this last remedy with those sweet words of the psalmist. In Judah is God known, his name is great in Israel. In Salem also is his tabernacle and his dwelling place in Sion. There brake he the arrows of the bow, the shield and the sword and the battle. Selah. Psalm 76, verse 1 to 3. And with this said, I have come to the end of reading this magnificent, in-depth teaching. And I truly hope that you learn a lot of all these words of wisdom. If you do not truly understand what is passed on to you as valuable information, ask the Holy Spirit, and it shall help you to get a deeper understanding of the message in this. And thank you for listening, and God bless you.